And then the whole backside, you know, is out.
People say you're not funny.
They do?
Yeah. They say you're boring too.
So this is basically 90% of where I was filming, but it's like.
What the? I'm coming to the cottage.
This is the story of how a Canadian hockey romance became the highest-rated show of its year, by doing the one thing most romance adaptations won't, treating physical intimacy as character development instead of something to sanitize or skip over.
Why the fuck did you think it was okay to sex me before the game? What the fuck?
You were hard, weren't you?
How about you tell me everything that's on your mind, but in Russian?
You missed me, didn't you?
I fucking didn't. And I still beat your ass.
Barely. Come here.
No, you come here.
No, you come here.
No, you come here.
Late November 2025 brought the premiere of Heated Rivalry, and critics gave it a near-perfect score on Rotten Tomatoes, making it the highest-scored season of the entire television year. Within weeks, it became Crave's most-watched original series ever, and landed among HBO Max's top-rated acquired series since the platform launched back in 2020. One episode even briefly achieved a perfect rating on IMDb, joining an extremely exclusive club of episodes that have ever reached that milestone.
Okay, so you're gay, so what?
Well, it's kind of a big deal. To me, at least.
What room are you in?
This looks serious.
It's not. It wasn't nothing. Don't act like that. This is hard enough without you being an asshole. I don't think I can keep pretending I don't like you anymore.
What makes this really interesting is that nobody expected it. This wasn't some massive HBO prestige drama with a huge marketing budget. It was a 6-episode adaptation of a romance novel from a few years back about two closeted NHL players, created by the person who made Letterkenny and shot in just over a month in southern Ontario. HBO Max didn't even pick up the US rights until just over a week before it premiered. So how did a show about gay hockey players outperform nearly everything else on television?
Hey.
Sorry.
I wish I spoke Russian.
Так сильно тебя люблю и не знаю, что с этим делать.
Like a clean hit, Hollander just did not see it coming.
Are you Russian?
I'm not, no.
What?
Yeah.
You look Russian.
Yeah, that's what it says.
The answer comes down to one creative decision that separated it from almost every other romance adaptation out there. Most studios panic when romance novels get adapted for TV or film. They tone things down, cut the explicit scenes, fade to black at the moments that actually matter. The emotional beats stay, the longing looks survive, the romantic dialogue makes it through, but when it comes to physical intimacy, they either sanitize it into something family-friendly or treat it like optional content you could cut without losing anything. This pattern shows up everywhere, but you see it especially with LGBTQ romance.
It's the intimacy garment.
And they call it a sack.
This is the most bleeping we've ever done on the history of the Tonight Show. The more you learn about us, the more you realize that I'm actually probably more Shane in real life and you're actually more Ilya in real life.
Look at the most successful queer romance adaptations of the past few years and you'll notice a pattern. Heartstopper on Netflix is beautiful and deserves all its success, but it's content for younger audiences, wholesome and sweet, and built for teenagers. Red, White, and Royal Blue had chemistry and charm, but played more like a rom-com than a deep romantic drama. Young Royals got closer to authentic intimacy, but still operated within certain boundaries that kept it from going too far. None of this is a criticism because these shows succeeded at what they set out to do, but they left a gap in the market, a space for adult queer romance that didn't apologize for being adult, that treated physical intimacy as part of the emotional journey rather than a bonus feature you could remove without changing the story.
I can carry my own bag.
How are your ribs?
Fine, I can take my bag.
Leave me alone.
No. Tell me about them.
What do you want to know?
Creator Jacob Tierney spotted this gap when he first read Rachel Reid's novel. Interviews reveal he was completely straightforward about his approach, describing it as a Harlequin romance with a happy ending about two people in love. He wasn't trying to make prestige drama that happens to include romance or a sports story with a romantic subplot. He was making exactly what the source material was and refusing to dilute it for anyone. So what does it actually mean to treat physical intimacy as character development?
I love you.
I love it.
Heated Rivalry isn't just explicit for the sake of being explicit, and that distinction matters. 6 episodes running close to an hour each follow two professional hockey players over roughly 8 years of a secret relationship that defines both their lives. Shane Hollander plays for the Montreal Voyageurs as a Canadian star, while Ilya Rozanov represents the Boston Bears as a Russian player. They meet at the World Championships when they're both around 20 years old, rivals on the ice from different countries playing for rival NHL teams, and they're both closeted in one of the most hyper-masculine sports cultures on the planet.
Did you, bring anybody?
No? Hey, Hollander. Can you get these kids some money? I don't have my wallet.
I feel like we're gonna get a lot of that sort of thing this weekend.
Their relationship begins as purely physical encounters in hotel rooms during away games, moments that have to stay hidden from teammates and fans and everyone else in their lives. Tierney explained his approach in interviews by noting that intimate scenes aren't random additions to each episode. Characters learn about each other and learn about themselves through their physical relationship, which means cutting those scenes would be like removing dialogue from a different show. You can watch this play out across the season as the way Shane and Ilya are with each other physically changes while their emotional relationship deepens. Early encounters are urgent and almost desperate with this sense of scarcity running through them.
Are there any gay hockey players?
None that have said it publicly.
Come here. No, you come here. No, you come here. No, you come here.
HBO's leadership called this out specifically in interviews, noting that for anyone who has been closeted for any amount of time, the physical intensity reflects that feeling of never finding this again, that fear that makes every moment feel like it might be the last. That intensity doesn't exist for shock value, it amplifies what the storytelling is trying to accomplish. By mid-season, the intimacy becomes more vulnerable and more trusting. You see them learning each other and learning how to communicate without words, how to be safe with each other when the rest of their world demands they hide who they are. The physical relationship becomes the one place they can be completely honest, which is why cutting or sanitizing these scenes would gut the story.
And it felt like we were something.
We can't be something, Hollander.
Ilya, I'm gay.
You're not so gay you can fuck Rose Landry.
Oh my god.
I'm just a bellboy kid.
It's you. It's this.
One major review noted that Heated Rivalry stands out among recent queer television by being willing to actually show queer intimacy without apology. The same review compared the chemistry between Hudson Williams and Connor Story to classic Hollywood pairs and called the show not only one of the most entertaining of the year, but also one of its most significant pieces of television. Another publication went so far as to say, Heated Rivalry makes Heartstopper seem like children's television by comparison, and that's not a knock on Heartstopper, but a recognition they're serving completely different audiences with completely different needs.
You like tuna melt?
You wanna make me a tuna melt?
I was gonna make one for me, I can make two.
For the next 2 weeks, let's just be honest with each other.
The hockey culture authenticity is the other reason this approach works, and that comes from Tierney actually understanding the sport. Letterkenny and Shoresy both came from him, both shows dealing extensively with hockey locker room dynamics, and one analysis described his previous work as using honest depictions of the sometimes toxic aspects of hockey culture as a way to explore more progressive ideas about masculinity. That same sensibility carries over here.
I don't give a fuck how I played 2 fucking nights ago. I don't need to think about that. That was yesterday, that was before.
I don't think I'd be focused on the puck. I'll just punch people, hit people, and just kind of.
And he's an
get
actual
dirty.
athlete too.
The show doesn't pretend hockey culture isn't hypermasculine, or that coming out wouldn't have massive consequences for players in that environment. The closet gets treated as a place of genuine fear and isolation rather than just an inconvenience to overcome. One major review described the closet as a place of fear and loneliness, where desire collides with terror of stigmatization and rejection. And the show depicts that difficult space with compassion and tenderness rather than judgment.
It's a gay bar, and I was thinking that you could just come as my friend. I'm not just a pretty face.
Oh, but you're a very pretty face. You can't tell if anyone finds out that.
What's really interesting is that the show doesn't villainize characters who aren't ready to come out. Scott Hunter exists as a supporting character who's also a closeted athlete, and his hesitation isn't framed as cowardice or cruelty, but as something much more human. Fan commentary specifically praised this aspect, noting that his fear gets presented as real and understandable because he's a professional athlete in a hyper-masculine environment, genuinely terrified of what acknowledging the truth might cost him.
Do you want to come to my game tonight?
Oh, wow.
I have 2 seats. Can you stay?
Yeah.
Do you want the full tour now, or?
This authenticity extends to the actual hockey itself. Filming happened at real arenas like the Sleeman Center in Guelph. The skating looks professional because they cast actors who could actually play, and the locker room talk and pre-game rituals and press conferences all feel lived in rather than researched by people who've never been near a hockey rink. Even the NHL itself took notice. The commissioner watched all 6 episodes in one sitting and acknowledged the show is helping grow the game, and the NHL's official statement called it the most unique driver for creating new fans in the league's history.
I've heard the term boy aquarium, right? And they just sit on the glass and they're...
We're just not compatible.
So you and Rose Landry are not?
Yeah, not.
They're like the boy aquarium, but I think
I've never heard that term in my life.
I would assume it would be very disappointing.
Compatible. I thought I knew what it meant, but I wanted to be sure.
She's great, but
Think about that for a second. A show about 2 closeted gay hockey players is being praised by the actual National Hockey League for bringing new fans to the sport. That doesn't happen unless the hockey culture authenticity is absolutely airtight and rings true to people who actually know the sport. The other thing Heated Rivalry does that most adaptations won't is trust the source material's timeline. Rachel Reid's novel spans a decade, and Tierney kept that structure for the show, which means this isn't a romance that happens over one season or one tournament. 8 years of stolen moments and almost confessions and growing up and growing into themselves while keeping this massive secret unfold across the episodes. Fan reviews specifically highlighted this approach and noted that the love story isn't rushed or forced or simplified. Natural unfolding built on tension and growth makes the relationship feel earned, shaped by time and genuine connection rather than convenience or plot requirements. This matters because it gives weight to the physical intimacy in a way compressed timelines can't achieve. When you're watching people connect over nearly a decade, every encounter means something different. The urgency of year 1 looks nothing like the comfort of year 5, and the show tracks that evolution while using the intimate scenes as part of how you understand where they are emotionally at any given point. The casting made this possible. Hudson Williams plays Shane Hollander, and Connor Story plays Ilya Rozanov, both relative newcomers whose chemistry became the foundation of everything the show achieved. Williams brought something specific to Shane by portraying him as autistic, which is confirmed canon in the books. Drawing on his own father's experience on the spectrum shaped the performance in ways that one analysis praised by noting how Shane's autism isn't a plot point or a weakness or a stereotype, but present in everything he does. Shane waits for information that is explicit and unambiguous and complete, and this is not naivete but autism portrayed with care. Williams himself talked about avoiding stereotypes in interviews, and noted that autism sometimes gets portrayed with very specific physical mannerisms, but the reality can be much more subtle. Sometimes it's flat affect and being very still, and taking extra time to process and respond, which is what he brought to Shane. Story's dedication to Ilya was equally intense. Weeks of daily Russian lessons prepared him, and he stayed in accent from the moment he arrived on set until the final cut each day, which Russian viewers confirmed paid off when they reported that his lengthy monologue in episode 5 was completely intelligible with native speakers understanding every word clearly. One major publication observed that both actors capture complex emotions in their faces. Their chemistry is exceptional, and Story pulls off an impressive Russian accent that doesn't sound like an actor attempting Russian, but like someone who actually speaks the language. TV Line recognized both actors as performers of the week for the season finale. That chemistry sustained across 6 hours of television and 8 years of story time is what makes the slow burn actually work instead of feeling artificial or rushed. Real-world consequences came from making these creative choices, and this isn't just about critical acclaim, but actual impact on the sport it depicts and the people who play it. Mid-January arrived less than 2 months after the show premiered, and hockey player Jesse Courtney publicly came out. He explicitly credited the series and said he never thought something so positive and loving could come from such a masculine sport, adding that he knows many closeted gay men in the hockey world are being affected by the show's success. Hudson Williams revealed that closeted male professional players from different sports have contacted him following the show's release, which matters because the NHL remains the only major North American men's professional sports league with no active or retired players who have publicly come out. Decades of advocacy and Pride Nights couldn't quite accomplish what this show managed, showing closeted players that there's a path forward that doesn't end in disaster. Viewership numbers back up this cultural moment. Crave saw viewership increase dramatically within the first week. Viewers logged hundreds of millions of viewing minutes in a single week in early January, and one ticket platform reported a significant increase in hockey ticket interest since the show premiered. What's really interesting is how the show's impact crossed over far beyond its expected audience. Viewership data by the finale showed the audience skewed heavily female, which means male-male romance finding mainstream success happened because the adaptation treated the source material with respect instead of trying to make it more palatable to some imagined broader audience that doesn't actually exist. The fandom exploded in unusual ways too. One communications expert described it as an explosion of a new fandom that's breaking all the previous rules about how fandoms operate, crossing from traditional fandom spaces like Tumblr to mainstream platforms where people post under their real names instead of hiding behind pseudonyms. Notable public figures have referenced the show, including people from programs like The Bear and Hacks. CNN's New Year's Eve broadcast mentioned it, and multiple celebrities have publicly discussed watching it and being affected by the story. Even in Russia, where anti-LGBTQ laws prevent legal streaming, the show achieved extremely high ratings on their version of IMDb, higher than Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad in that market. One analyst noted that Ilya's story likely resonated with the Russian queer community despite the legal barriers to accessing the content, which speaks to how universal the emotional truth of the show actually is. Heated Rivalry succeeded by treating physical intimacy as character development instead of sanitizing it or treating it as optional, but that's not the whole story. Understanding that for these characters, physical intimacy is the primary way they communicate trust and vulnerability when the rest of their world demands they hide is what separates this from other shows. It's the one space where they can be completely honest with each other and with themselves. Removing those scenes or fading to black would be like removing all the dialogue from a different show because you'd lose the actual mechanism through which the characters understand each other and grow. The show also succeeded by trusting the source material. Rachel Reid's novel was published in early 2019 and had built a massive fan base with well over 100,000 ratings on Goodreads and a very high average score. The entire Game Changers series had sold hundreds of thousands of copies before the show premiered, which meant these readers knew what they wanted and Tierney gave it to them without compromise. That refusal to compromise paid off in ways most studios never believe will work. International distributors approached wanting content changes, and Tierney and producer Brendan Brady turned them down, working with a UK distributor specifically because it protected their creative control. That decision resulted in a cultural phenomenon instead of a forgettable compromise that nobody would remember 6 months later. The proof shows up in the results. A near-perfect critic score on Rotten Tomatoes arrived first, then immediate Season 2 renewal announced less than 2 weeks after the finale. Book sales shot up dramatically in the weeks following the premiere, with the novel from years earlier selling tens of thousands of copies in a single week in early January and hitting the top 10 on major bestseller lists. Rachel Reid became a New York Times bestseller based on renewed sales, and books sold out on Amazon completely. The HBO executive who acquired it revealed he watched the show one day and negotiated the next, closing the deal remarkably quickly because he was surprised it was even available for acquisition. He assumed a show this good would already be locked up by someone else. What Heated Rivalry proves is that adult audiences exist for romance that doesn't apologize for being romance. Queer audiences exist for stories that treat their intimacy as legitimate and necessary rather than something to minimize or hide. Sports fans exist for authentic representation of their culture even when the story challenges its most toxic elements and asks hard questions about who gets to belong. Protecting creative vision pays off, which goes against everything the industry has believed for decades. The assumption has always been that you need to sand off the edges and broaden the appeal and make it safer for mainstream audiences who might be uncomfortable. Heated Rivalry did the opposite and became one of the most successful shows of the year, which should tell studios something about what audiences actually want versus what executives assume they want. One major review noted that the combination of celebrating physical relationships and romantic wish fulfillment makes Heated Rivalry hugely satisfying, taking it far beyond being dismissed as just Canadian gay hockey content that only a niche audience would care about. That phrase was used dismissively by some early critics who couldn't imagine it would connect with broader audiences. Tierney leaned into it and said, "Yes, that's exactly what this is, and we're going to make it as well as we possibly can. A Harlequin romance with a happy ending," and in doing so he created something that multiple critics called not just entertaining but significant television that matters beyond its entertainment value. One review summarized why it works by noting that the best romances understand that a great love story often depends more on the chemistry between its leads than the plot itself, and the actors more than deliver on that front with performances that feel lived in and real. Another review gets to the heart of why this matters by describing the show as layered and nuanced and beautiful content in a world that often tries to keep these stories in the dark or treat them as less worthy of serious attention. This is the one thing Heated Rivalry does better than most romance shows. Physical intimacy gets treated as character development and emotional truth, and the primary language through which these specific characters learn to trust and be vulnerable with each other instead of something shameful to hide or minimize. No fading to black happens here. No sanitizing for broader appeal. The explicit content doesn't get treated as optional bonus material you could remove without fundamentally changing the story, because the creators understand that for two closeted athletes in a hypermasculine sport, intimate scenes aren't just romance for the sake of romance. They're the only space where they can be completely themselves without fear or pretense. Tierney and his team committed to that vision without compromise and created the highest-rated show of its year, helped a real hockey player come out, brought new fans to the NHL, turned a novel from years ago into a current bestseller, and proved to the entire industry that adult queer romance has massive mainstream appeal when you trust the source material and refuse to dilute what makes it work. Season 2 is coming within the next couple years, adapting the sequel novel. Based on everything we've seen so far, they're not going to change the formula, and honestly they shouldn't. They found something that works, and they found the thing most romance adaptations are too scared to do, and the audience showed up in massive numbers because of it, rather than in spite of it. That's the lesson here. Sometimes the bold choice is the right choice, and sometimes giving audiences what they actually want, even when it seems risky, creates better art and bigger success than playing it safe ever could. Heated Rivalry proved that treating intimacy as necessary rather than optional doesn't just work, it's exactly what makes the whole thing matter in ways sanitized versions never could.